Good morning, and thanks for joining us. I'm Twanda Black, your host, and joining me this morning, Vijay Baldav Mehra. He is an author, and he's going to tell you about how he got here. But the name of the book is The Journey and the Voice, The Signal and the Noise. How are you this morning?
Very good, Twanda. Thank you. Good morning to you.
Good morning. Good morning. Tell our audience a little bit about your journey and how you got to writing this book.
Sure. I have always wanted to do something in the creative field since I was a kid. I used to do dramatics when I was in high school in India, and always loved the creative aspect of my corporate life, which took me across 6 different countries, and, right from the bottom of the ladder as an IT programmer to being a CIO of a couple of big multi-billion-dollar companies. So it took a lot of courage, though, to come to the junction in life and say, okay, this is the time when I'm actually going to dare to dream my dream and follow my dream. And that's what I did last year. I took the plunge and wrote the book.
Wow.
And I've started my second one as well.
Okay. So let's talk about the journey. You started out this book on an airplane. Really interesting. And so tell us about the journey.
Yeah, The Journey is a work of creative fiction, but of course it draws from my own life.
Mm-hmm.
And it's about the journey of a man named Amar. And as he starts his journey on this airplane, he has no idea that this physical journey is going to lead to insights into the big one, the journey of life.
Right.
And he starts introspecting about, why is he here? Who is he? What is the meaning of success? What is the meaning of failure? What is life? What is love? And he starts to hear a voice from very deep within him that seems to repeat a unshakable message telling him to remember it's all good.
Right.
This is all good.
This is good, yeah.
And and he starts to sort of tune into that and understand the depth of the message. Not just in a sort of superficial way, as in when bad things happen, don't worry, it's all good.
Right.
But in a deeper way, that the good, the bad, and the ugly is all meant to be. Paradoxical as it might sound, it's all part of a universal dance. It's all part of just the potpourri that is life. And he starts to learn to accept life from all its aspects, the good stuff, the bad stuff, the not so pleasant stuff, and embrace it to the fullest, and then live fully and be happy in every circumstance.
You bring this kid over from India, and he's going to school, and into a new culture and a new life and everything, and that had to be really scary. Yeah,
that can be scary, and quite honestly, that is one of the parts that draws from my own life. I grew up in India up to the age of 18. I came to America to study at Cornell University in upstate New York, and those first few days of being on campus and just learning to go about stuff in a different environment were quite amazing and quite humorous as well.
I'm sure. How did you get through the language barrier? Although you may know the language, sometimes the slang terms that we can use kind of throws you off a little bit, and you think it's one thing and it really means something else. And I know for a lot of my friends who are from different countries when I was in school, and friends I have now, it's the same thing.
Exactly. And there were some, so the language barrier was in the initial days definitely something to get over. There were some funny moments that got generated as well, as a result of different words meaning different things in the English language in different parts of the world. In fact, there's a paragraph from the book that I'd love to read to you that talks about the central character Amar's use of the word rubber.
Yeah, that was funny.
So, if you would like to hear it, I can read out maybe 10 lines. Yeah. So it says, at other times, the English language and its colloquialisms created situations in real life for Amar that were not too far from the British sitcom Mind Your Language, which ran riot in the 70s and the early 80s. On one occasion, Amar had made friends with a gorgeous Italian-American brunette from Massachusetts, and they were sitting down to listen to one of the many seminars during orientation week. Amar wanted to interact with her some more and thought of asking for some stationery that could be used during the seminar. Since he was writing with a pencil, he thought it quite natural to ask for an eraser. But there was one problem, a pretty major one at the time. In India, Amar had grown up to refer to the eraser by the British colloquial term, which is, hold on, rubber. Now, in the United States, and very much so in Cornell, a rubber meant something altogether different, and typically used by two people to have safe sex. So when Amar reached across 3 seats and asked in a fairly audible voice for Eileen's rubber, everyone paused in sheer shock. Even the professor stopped writing. Only when Eileen turned visibly red in the face and seemed to be on the verge of getting very upset did his wits awaken from their slumber and rescue Omar in the nick of time. Oh no, I mean eraser, sorry. In India, as in England, we call the damn thing a rubber. It's a bit like tomato and tomato, sorry. And then he paused, and there was an eruption of laughter and chatter, and the professor started writing on the board again, and so on and so on. So, some funny moments do happen, and it's all part of the journey, all part of the dance, if you will.
Yeah, my husband, my first husband, was from Guyana, and British, of course. So it was the same with them, and so he would say a lot of really funny things that I'd be like, what did you just say? And so we kind of had that language barrier within ourselves at times. It was really interesting. So Omar is going on this journey, and he's learning things, and women. This was really interesting for Omar and his crew of friends that he met and developed real relationships with.
Yeah, that's part of the sort of author's pen sort of doing its stuff.
Mm-hmm.
That's also, some parts of it, obviously, in the early days in college. Amar lived a very full college life, as all kids do in America or most parts of the world. And he, had his flings and his relationships in college, and he grew from them, and he sort of cherished all of those moments, dabbled in stuff, learned from it, moved on.
Yeah, and he didn't get caught up. That's the good thing.
That's it. He always
because some people can get caught up, and it's a lifelong struggle to beat the things that you started in college: alcohol, drugs, sex. Just the madness of it. The so-called fun part of college. But Amar moves on, and he gets a job, and he does everything, and he gets married. But it's an arranged marriage, as in the Indian culture.
That's right. And I think you've hit on two sort of key points there. One is he doesn't get caught up and he moves on,
mm-hmm.
because he really looks at life as a journey. He's always right from the essence of the character in the book, and this draws from my life as well, where right through childhood, right from my early days, I've always sort of had this intuitive feeling that my life is not about reaching some point. It's about the whole journey. I've been
mm-hmm.
I've been sort of very aware of the fact that everything that has a beginning must have an end.
That's right.
So I live sort of daily keeping that in mind, that
mm-hmm.
It's about the moments and the journey, and not about the achievements and the wealth or the fame or the position or so many other things. And that helps you to detach, and that helps you to move on, and that helps you to sort of
not get stuck. Yeah.
Not get stuck.
Yeah.
Not get stuck.
Yeah.
In fact, there's a in my second book there's a little poem I've written about life, and I think it captures the essence of even what Amar thinks of as and certainly what I think of as life. And if I could just read to you a couple of paragraphs of that would be, I think it would help.
Sure.
Yeah. The book's called Reflections, and it'll be out in about 4 or 5 months, the second one. And this one's called The Journey of Life, and it goes as such. Life is a journey often taken for granted. Keep your eyes peeled, my friends, or she may leave you slanted. We get so caught up in our dreams of tomorrow, and some of us get bogged down by yesterday's sorrow, that few live each day as it was our last, to the fullness of being with nothing to ask. Of course, dreams are good, and we must dare to dream, and strive and toil to achieve the unheard and unseen. But remember, my friends, it's only a lease, perhaps 100 years or less. Oh gosh, oh geez. So work hard, achieve more, and climb every mountain. Bask in your sunlight and drink from love's fountain. But remember, my friends, to pause and dismount, to hear your inner voice. It's the journey that counts. Not money, not fame, nor power nor name. We chase these blindly is such a shame. None of them matter in your soul's brilliant flight. So live full, love well, be kind, and live right.
That's nice. That
Thank
is
you.
really, really nice. Amar moves on in his life, and he begins to then hear the signal and the noise. So talk about that for a moment. We know what the voice is, that inner voice that speaks to us at times when we really need it and sometimes when we don't, but our inner voice. But talk about the signal and the noise and what that means.
Sure. You know, what Amar starts to do as he sits back and sort of, zones in and out of scenes of his life consciously and subconsciously, is that he starts to realize that there are certain thematic patterns that played out in his life and that still sort of govern, his perception of reality and how he plays, how he lives, if you will, from moment to moment. And he tries to tune into that and tries to understand it better as to, what is it that has made him get where he is in life today? What is it that has defined his success and his failure? And as he tunes into that, he goes back into his early days in his career where he was an IT programmer, and he learns that, sort of almost unconsciously, he had learned to focus on, the handful of things that define the outcome in the context of his job at the time. So he had learned to actually separate, things that are important from things that are not important. He had learned to intuitively start to recognize, what sort of the key handful of variables need to be that one needs to focus on to achieve a certain outcome. But this he did in a very limited way. He only learned to do this for his career. He never expanded that awareness into the rest of his life. And that is what constitutes the signal, to actually tune into every moment of our lives as to what's happening around us, whether it's in our relationships, whether it's in our professional life, whether it's in our achievements in the workplace or at home or in sport or on vacation, but to tune into the happenings around us and kind of go deep within and say, okay, so what am I supposed to learn from this? What am I supposed to evolve from this experience? Yeah. What is the message, if at all, anything? And sometimes there may be none, but at times if you tune into it, you might start to see that there are actually things that if you pay attention to, you can delve into to make your life more whole and more complete and more happy and live in the fullness of being. And that's the signal. Yeah. And other stuff, everything that's not the signal, everything that's a momentary distraction, everything that's kind of a detour is the noise. But that's kind of the essence of, learning to appreciate life in its fullness.
Exactly.
And it's got it all. It's got the good, the bad, and the ugly. Right. All of our lives have a half full cup and a half empty cup. I don't think there's a human being on the planet that can, claim to have just a full cup and no issues or no problems or no sorrow. But to learn to embrace it all, the happiness and the sorrow, the duality, the opposites, and to kind of learn that this is all part of the dance, and that's just the way it's meant to be.
That's right.
There's pieces that work and there's pieces that don't work.
But you have to be conscious first, and that's the thing,
That's it.
So many people live an unconscious life.
This is true. That is so well put, Twanda. I couldn't have said it better myself. I mean, I think the first thing comes down to really asking, who am I? And most of us live our lives, as you said, in an unconscious way where we relate the who am I question to a very simple answer at the body level. We say, I am Vijay Baldev Mehra, and that defines just the physical body. But there's much more to existence. We live in our minds, we live in our intellect, we live in our ego, we live in our breath. We live at the highest level when you do meditation and stuff, we live in ourselves. And once we start to step back and look at life as existence in multiple levels, then the question of who am I changes, or the answer of who am I really changes from a very physical, obvious, sort of reactionary answer from the physical body to a much deeper set of possibilities of a much bigger existence.
Right.
And that opens up doorways to beauty and doorways to living a full life and doorways to just living a fullness of being right through the journey. The journey doesn't change. That's the beauty of it. None of this changes the sorrow that's going to come. None of this changes the happiness that's going to come.
It's true.
None of this changes the success and the failure. This is duality. But what it does change is our way of experiencing it all, our way of being in it all, and that defines a different life. And what I've tried to do through the journey is get the reader to start his or her own set of inquiries along these dimensions through sharing the work of creative fiction of Amar, which draws from my own life.
One thing I want you to explain is primordial energy. In the last few chapters, when you start asking the questions and Amar falls asleep and all of these questions come up, and the next day he's like, I don't know anything. I know nothing. What is really going on with my life? That's when he gets the signal, and he's trying to figure things out. And that comes up, the primordial energy. That comes up.
Let me try. It'll take a few minutes, but let me try and explain it in a succinct,
as simple terms as you can.
Yes, as simply as I can.
Yes.
So, if I were to try and directly translate it into a phrase, I would say the primordial energy is the first energy, or the energy at the source. And what I mean by that, I'll try and explain in the next few minutes by decomposing first from our self of identity of the body, saying, if we think of ourselves as just human beings, and we have, I have my physical manifestation, you have your physical manifestation. We live in our world in different countries and different cultures. We live on this thing called planet Earth. It's part of the solar system. It's part of the Milky Way, et cetera, et cetera. But if you try and decompose, the who am I down to who is Vijay Baldev Mehra? Well, he has a composite of organs that make up his body. Okay, fine. What do the organs consist of? They consist of, tissues and blood vessels, and okay, fine. To go further and further deeper, and then you come down to the cellular structure, and then you come down to the atomic layer, and then you come down to the subatomic layer, and then you come down to photons and neutrons and electrons and basic energy. Now, when you look at the basic energy that makes up a Vijay Baldev Mehra, or makes up a Susan or a John or a Joe or anybody on any part of this planet, or any living thing on any part of this planet, or any non-living thing on this part of the planet, or for that matter, you look at anything that makes up matter in any planet in the solar system or the Milky Way, or you look at anything that makes up matter anywhere in the universe, it eventually comes down to a manifestation of energy. And the manifestation of energy, what I'm trying to say in the book, is a manifestation of the first source of energy, the original source, which is the primordial energy. Okay. So at one level, if you take it scientifically and we say, if the Big Bang Theory is true, then the primordial energy is what was before the bang happened. Can I prove it? Of course not.
Of course not.
But, the beauty of it is, it actually, if you start inquiring and you actually start sort of having a little bit of courage to ask these questions of, who am I, or who are we, and why are we here? And
why am I here?
Why exactly? And you try and unravel those, at least start the inquiry. Then the notion of a primordial energy, whether it comes from the Big Bang Theory or it comes from a spiritual tradition, doesn't really matter. But the beauty is that if we open ourselves up to that possibility, then all of a sudden we realize that the strife within humanity, the strife between peoples, between cultures, between religions, between ideas, is so ridiculous and is so superficial.
Small and
petty. End of the day,
because
at the end of the day, we're made up of the same thing. We're made up of that same energy. We are just different manifestations of that same primordial energy. And then, the notion of me versus you or us versus them falls apart.
It just goes away.
It just goes away.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. It's a fantastic book. It's a great read, folks. Is this in all the bookstores?
This is on Amazon.com. It is published by CreateSpace, which is an Amazon company. It's a self-published book through CreateSpace, and it's online on Amazon in the Kindle format and on paperback. It can be ordered. It can be downloaded on Kindle, of course, anywhere in the world, and also shipped anywhere in the world in paperback.
All right. It's called The Journey and the Voice, The Signal and the Noise, and Vijay Baldev Mehra, Mehra. I want you to be able to spell the name to get the book. And VJ, thank you so much for taking out time to talk with us today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Twanda. It's been a pleasure.